Hello, I'm Rebecca Benneyworth, and I'm here to introduce the summer edition of the Bankstream Accountants Confidence Index, which is an ongoing collaboration with AccountingWEB. With me to discuss the index and the findings are from Bankstream, I have Frank Woods, and AccountingWEB editor John Stokdyk. Welcome both. So, John, what do you think are the main findings this time from the index?
Okay, well, we did our polling in early May, so it's impossible to avoid the sort of political context with the general election going on. And what we saw was an improvement from 7.1 to 7.2 over the past quarter. So I really take that as it looks like accountants did welcome the return of a business-friendly Conservative government. Now, interestingly, we always go in and look at the results earlier on, and right after the election, it was much higher. It was jumping up to 7.3, and the accountants' view of their own business opportunities were brilliant. But then we saw kind of it sinking back down, so it wasn't quite as euphoric by the time the survey closed a few weeks later.
Okay, John, that's very interesting. And I guess not only reality kicking in, but people getting back to work and getting on with the next task in our sort of annual cycle of work to be done, which I guess is starting to face up to P11D work and things like that. So can you take me behind the figures? Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the background to those figures?
Well, one thing that Frank raised last quarter that was about the constraints on growth within firms and their small business clients. So we decided to look a bit into that more, particularly in the area of fee levels, which have been quite lively on AccountingWEB. So we specifically asked a question about this, and surprisingly, nearly 2/3 of our members were affected in some way by the fee squeeze. The largest group, 43.8%, just felt unable to increase their fees this year. With particularly with all the headlines about low inflation, there's too much of a risk of alienating clients there.
Yeah.
Then another 14.5% were actually getting pressure from clients to reduce their fees. And I think the sign there we're getting is really you're going to begin to have to prove your value to your clients much more. And finally, 5% have actually lost clients to other firms who are offering cheaper fees. So that's again confirming this view that compliance work is being commoditized and squeezing margins. So that's quite a shocking effect on the profession, and I think does explain a lot of the sort of fail to live up to expectations and why firms aren't able to grow as much as they would hope.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems, I think, for firms now is that if what you're doing is providing essentially a clerical service of computing accounts after the end of the year and filling in a tax return, you're not seen as a valuable business aid by businesses. You're seen as an overhead. And all businesses are looking to cut overheads. So the accountant, in terms of as a role in the business, has actually got to become something more than somebody who just fills in forms. I think that's absolutely essential. That's going to be the key to growth, because you can't go on doing the same old thing and expecting people to pay more for it. I don't think businesses expect to pay the same for it. I think they do expect to pay less. I really do think that accountants have got to get out there and become valuable to their clients. And then actually, I suspect they'll be able to increase their fees because they won't be seen as a cost anymore. So I think it's very interesting.
I think if you that evolution, that growth in the service provision's one thing. The other part of it is the compliance work that does sit there today. Still exists.
Yep.
And if we can make that profitable, that's going to be really an advantage to them, because there's another thing going on here as well, and that is recent surveys that have come out about wages are showing that wages and salaries inside the profession are increasing. So you've got an overworked position, an inability to raise fees in a low inflation environment, plus wage increases. So there's a real squeeze
Yeah.
coming on. And I think for accountants, well, looking at the survey and some of the results we're getting there, they're starting to look at technology, starting to look at automating processes. And if you can automate a process inside a compliance environment, then you can make it a profitable part of your practice. At the moment, the survey is showing that 32% of practices are already using bank data feeds or automated feeds, and another 24% are looking at it and are planning to investigate it in the short term. I'm not sure what the other 40-something% are doing. Perhaps they should be taking heed as well. But that's a really interesting point. There is money to be made out of compliance, but you've really got to look to your computers and look to your technology and automation to help you do that. And I think, well, if you can do that while you're evolving towards greater service provision and more profitable work, it's probably the best of both worlds if they can achieve it.
I mean, obviously, even with the alleged end of the tax return by 2020, I think that level of basic compliance work is going to have to be done. You're absolutely right, Frank. And obviously, what the profitable and a successful firm will be doing that as cheaply as possible. So you aren't paying people a lot of money to faff about with terrible record keeping. You've got something on record keeping, haven't you, in the survey? And
that remains, again, probably one of those underlying pain points and problems within the small businesses who, again, lag behind practitioners in their prospects for the next quarter. This time, the problem as perceived by advisors went up from, I think it was 38% to 41%. So that hasn't gone away.
Yeah. Well, that's been a fascinating discussion. It's all we've got time for. But if you'd like the detailed results yourself, you can download them. They're at www.accountingweb.co.uk/Bankstream.